Let's get to our 5 headlines. All right, well, the CDC has released its Thanksgiving guidelines. I will be disregarding all of their Thanksgiving guidelines, just as I've disregarded everything else they've said. But just for fun, here they are from Fox 5 NY. Here are the guidelines. I'll read a few of these to you, in case you're wondering, in case you want to get the CDC's approval, like you're planning your Thanksgiving dinner and celebration, and you're thinking, well, what does the CDC think about this? Here's what they say. Limiting the number of attendees as much as possible and allowing people from different households to social distance at all times is also encouraged. Hosting the gathering outdoors rather than indoors as much as possible and requiring guests to wear masks when they aren't eating or drinking is also encouraged. If you're hosting an indoor gathering, the CDC says to increase ventilation as much as possible by opening windows and doors. Thanks for that recommendation, CDC. I never would have thought to open my windows if it's a little stuffy inside. I needed the CDC to tell me that. When it comes to food and drinks, the CDC says hosts should encourage guests to bring food for themselves and members of their household and to avoid potluck-style gatherings. Okay, so you're all bringing your own meal, and you're just sitting down with glass partitions with masks on. Lift the mask up, stuff the turkey wing in. If you're preparing or serving food for guests that don't live in your household, you should wear a mask. Guests are encouraged to have a plan for storing their mask while eating and drinking. As always, everyone is asked to wash their hands with soap and water for 20 seconds. Again, I needed the CDC to tell me that. I would never have thought to wash my hands with soap and water. Usually I use ginger ale to wash my hands. And so every time I see this reminder from the CDC, use soap and water, I think, oh yeah, I forgot. The second iteration of CDC Thanksgiving guidance also includes recommendations for safe travel and overnight stays, and blah, 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 on and on. Yeah, this is something I just will not be paying attention to whatsoever. And yet again, this is the CDC. Now, at least it's the CDC here. It's a lot worse than like in a place like California, where you've got the health department taking all of these guidelines and actually making it a matter of law, even though, of course, the Department of Health doesn't have the authority to just create laws, but they're trying to do it, and they're trying to use the force of law to force you to do it. So at least with the CDC, it's just a guideline, which we don't have to listen to, and I won't. You know, this is one of the worst things to come of the COVID hysteria, is just the paranoia and suspicion that we're supposed to have, even towards our own families. Like if your aunt comes to your Thanksgiving and she brought her green bean casserole, you don't want to eat that. It might be infected with COVID. Number 2, this is from the Daily Wire. It says the fallout from this summer's riots, which saw businesses large and small looted and burned to the ground, continues to be seen as a new report from the New York Times shines a light on the insurance woes faced by those whose livelihoods were destroyed in the name of racial justice. It says, the outlet reported, while large chains like Walmart and Best Buy have excellent insurance, many small businesses that have been burned down since the riots lack similar coverage. And for them, there is no easy way to replace all that they lost. In Kenosha, more than 35 small businesses were completely destroyed, and around 80 have been damaged, according to the city's business association. Almost all are locally owned, and many are underinsured or struggling to manage. Now, and the report goes on with the Daily Wire. You can read it there, but I wanted to highlight that because this is something you heard from the rioters and from BLM. The excuse they gave is that, including that clip we played a few times of the BLM activist, I think she was in Chicago, saying that looting is a form of reparations and encouraging people to do it, and saying, oh, the businesses all have insurance, so you just take what you want. Now, these are people who don't understand how insurance works. It's not just you have insurance, so you can take whatever you want and magically, like you could burn down their business, and because you have insurance, it will magically regenerate on its own. Like the Wolverine and X-Men or something has regeneration powers. Suggests you steal whatever you want. You can steal the TV, and then the TV will rematerialize in its place. That seems to be what they think, but that's not how insurance works. And also, as it turns out, of course, a lot of these businesses don't have insurance or underinsured. And even if they do have insurance that can cover all of it, of course, this should go without saying, that doesn't mean you can just go and take whatever you want. Like if I'm sure that you have really great car insurance, that doesn't mean I can just ram into you on the highway and say, well, you got car insurance. What are you whining about? You got car insurance. Number 3, this is a tough time for the media because they can't quite decide if now that they've declared Biden the winner, they can't quite decide if they should just pretend that COVID has gone away and been cured, or if they should double down on the fear porn in hopes that Biden will put us into a full lockdown again, mask mandates and everything else. So they're kind of trying to walk this high wire act of propaganda where they're sort of doing both. And I feel for them because it's got to be difficult to figure out exactly how you want to lie to people. But on the fear porn side of things, there's this article from Reuters. Headline is, very scary headline. Listen to the headline. 1 in 5 COVID-19 patients develop mental illness within 90 days. Okay, now this makes it sound like COVID is causing some kind of neurological damage, making people go insane or something when they have COVID-19. That's what it sounds like when you see that headline. And if you saw that headline, you didn't click on it, you would just absorb that impression, that half-baked, vague impression, and bring it with you throughout your day. And that's what you're supposed to do. That's the point. But then you click on it. And here's what it says. Many COVID-19 survivors are likely to be at a greater risk of developing mental illness. According to psychiatrists, after a large study found 20% of those infected with the coronavirus are diagnosed with a psychiatric disorder within 90 days. What are the disorders, though? Anxiety, depression, and insomnia were the most common reported among recovered COVID-19 patients in the study. Anxiety, depression, and insomnia. Okay. So people with coronavirus, a disease that the media says will kill them, a disease that we're told, we had to shut down the country for, when they have it, they feel anxious and depressed. Wow. Huge news, amazing. Put this in a headline. You got it. It's incredible stuff. I can't believe that people who get sick with a virus that even Donald Trump calls the plague, which, by the way, I really wish you would stop doing that. But crazy that the people with that virus would have anxiety about it. Totally unexpected. Hey, I wonder, what kind of mental illness have the lockdowns caused and the media coverage? I bet there's a lot of anxiety and depression out there from people who never even got sick. Now, this is ridiculous, but then, I must admit, I say all this, admittedly, as someone who holds an extremely heterodox view about anxiety and depression. I don't really agree that either of those things are mental illnesses to begin with. Like I said, I know it's heretical these days. You're not allowed to say this. I actually think that anxiety in particular is a completely normal, though not enjoyable, aspect of the human experience. Even a defining aspect of the human experience. Part of what makes us human is that we can contemplate our own existence and feel despair or feel worried about it, feel anxious. Which doesn't mean that despair and anxiety are good or should be welcomed, but it does mean that it's not a disease. It's not a disorder. It's not a medical issue. And this is a perfect example of why. Oh, they have depression and anxiety. There's a very discernible reason for that. So to call it a mental illness is absurd. It's just you're reacting in a pretty normal way to your environment. Now, I think there are a lot of people that have way too much anxiety about the coronavirus because of all the fear porn that the media puts out. But still, it's a normal and predictable reaction to your environment. And in general, even without coronavirus, the fact is that there's a lot in the world that could make someone feel despair, make them feel anxious, make them feel anxiety. Again, not saying you should feel it, not saying if you do feel it, you should just embrace it and live with it. But it's not disordered, it's not diseased. But of course, what the pharmaceutical industry has done is they've just decided they've taken these normal aspects of the human experience, and they've drawn completely arbitrary lines and said, it's okay to feel this much despair. Like, here's the despair line, and you can feel despair up to that line, but if you feel it over that line, now it's a disease, and we're going to medicate it. Who says who? Where did you come up with this? Who told you where the line is? All right. As we have covered, leftists have been busy making lists recently, lists of all the heretics who have been insufficiently loyal to leftist orthodoxy, especially anyone who's expressed support for Trump. And they seem to have gotten on the list kick and are going wild with it right now. Here's a list that was on CNN yesterday. This woman, whoever she is, I'm not sure who it is, she has a list of GOP senators who have not congratulated Joe Biden. And it's like all of them, except for, I guess, Mitt Romney. So it's pretty much all the GOP. There might be one or two others who have congratulated. So I look at this, and I can pretty much guarantee you that this lady has a similar list at her house, probably up on her fridge, of every acquaintance who didn't wish her a happy birthday. I'd like to see a segment on that subject. Maybe CNN could do a segment about all the people who didn't wish this woman a happy birthday. Or maybe extended family members who still haven't sent her a wedding gift, even though her wedding was 3 years ago. These list makers, they can't help themselves. Finally, I want to play this for you simply because it is, to my mind, the most important piece of reporting that MSNBC has ever done. This was really hard-hitting stuff, and I just thought it was a really important piece of reporting. Here it is. Take a look.
NBC's Kim Delanian has some new reporting on something that we talked about at the top of the hour, how the Trump administration is handling the transition with the incoming Biden team, or not handling it, we should say, to a certain extent. This time, it involves our intelligence community. Ken, what have you learned, sir?
Oh, shit.
Okay. Think we lost Ken for a second.
I think the explanation that he gave for that is that he was having technical difficulties and didn't realize he was on camera, and so that's why that happened. But the way that I read it, at least what I would like to think, is that he's reacting to like some news via text message. Or maybe he was trying to order chicken wings by DoorDash, but the place was outside of the delivery zone. And I admit I have reacted in a similar way in similar situations many, many times. Just not usually on camera, though. That's the only difference. So, but that is maybe MSNBC's best moment. I think it's only right for us to take a moment and recognize it. Well, I hope you enjoyed that clip from the Matt Walsh Show. If you did, go ahead and hit that subscribe button right down there so you can stay up to date on all of our future content.